The wind howled like a wild animal outside Han Wu's cabin, shaking the wooden walls with each powerful gust. Snow piled up against the windows, and the temperature had dropped so low that even his breath formed clouds inside the warm room. Han Wu sat by the fireplace, reading an old book and sipping hot tea. He had chosen this remote mountain location for peace and quiet after leaving the military 5 years ago. A strange sound cut through the storm's noise. It wasn't the usual creak of trees or whistle of wind. This was different, almost like a distant crash followed by weak cries for help. Han Wu put down his book and listened carefully. There it was again, barely audible over the blizzard. He grabbed his heavy winter coat, flashlight, and first aid kit. Years of military training had taught him never to ignore distress calls, even in weather like this. The moment he opened the door, freezing wind slammed into his face, but he pushed forward into the white darkness. Following the sounds, Han Wu trudged through knee-deep snow for about 200 meters. His flashlight beam caught something that made him stop dead in his tracks. 2 figures lay crumpled in the snow, but they definitely weren't human. Their skin had a pale blue tint, and they were much taller and thinner than any person he'd ever seen. The creatures wore strange, form-fitting clothes that looked like they were made from materials he couldn't identify. One appeared to be male, the other female, and they looked remarkably similar, probably twins. Both were unconscious and covered in what looked like blood, though it had a slightly different color than human blood. Han Wu's first instinct was to back away. Every movie he'd ever watched told him that finding aliens meant trouble, but his military medic training overrode his fear. These beings were dying in the snow, and he couldn't just leave them. The female alien, who he would later learn was called Nari, had a deep gash across her shoulder. The male, Taemin, had what looked like burns on his arms and a head injury. That was bleeding slowly. Both were breathing, but barely, and their skin felt ice-cold even by the storm's standards. Han Wu made a quick decision. He couldn't treat them properly out here in the blizzard. Using techniques he'd learned for carrying wounded soldiers, he managed to lift the female first. She was surprisingly light despite her height. He carried her back to the cabin, then returned for the male. By the time he got both aliens inside, Han Wu was exhausted and soaked with melted snow. He laid them on blankets near the fireplace and began examining their injuries more carefully. Their anatomy seemed similar enough to humans that basic first aid might work. He cleaned their wounds with antiseptic, applied bandages, and checked their vital signs as best he could. Their heartbeats were faster than human hearts, and their body temperature seemed naturally lower, but they were alive, and that was what mattered. As Han Wu worked on treating the injured aliens, he couldn't help but wonder what had brought them to his remote mountain hideaway. The storm outside continued to rage, trapping all 3 of them together in the small cabin. He had no idea that this moment would change not just his life, but the fate of entire worlds across the galaxy. The aliens stirred occasionally, making soft sounds in a language he'd never heard before, but they remained, unconscious as the long night stretched ahead. The morning sun filtered through the cabin windows as Han Wu checked on his unexpected guests. The female alien's eyes fluttered open first, revealing bright golden irises that seemed to glow in the light. She tried to sit up quickly but winced from the pain in her shoulder where Han Wu had bandaged her wound. "Easy there," Han Wu said, gently, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're hurt pretty bad." The alien woman stared at him with wide eyes, clearly terrified. She said something in a musical language that sounded nothing like anything Han Wu had ever heard. Her voice was higher pitched than a human woman's, almost like wind chimes. She reached for a small device attached to her strange clothing and pressed a button. Suddenly, words came out in perfect Korean, though her mouth wasn't moving in sync with the sounds. "Please do not harm us," the device translated. "We mean no danger to your kind." Han Wu nearly dropped the cup of tea he was holding. "You can speak Korean?" "This device learns your speech patterns," she explained through the translator. "I am called Nari. The injured male is my brother Taemin." As if hearing his name, Taemin's eyes opened. He looked around the cabin with the same golden eyes as his sister, taking in the wooden walls, the fireplace, and Han Wu's simple furniture. He seemed amazed by everything he saw. "Where are we?" Taemin asked through his own translation device. My cabin in the Taebaek Mountains, Hanwoo replied. I found you both in the snow last night during the storm. You were almost frozen to death. Both aliens exchanged shocked looks. Nari struggled to sit up despite her injuries. You survived the ice storm without protective gear? How is this possible? Hanwoo looked confused. What protective gear? It's just winter weather. Cold, but nothing I can't handle. Taemin stared at him like he was looking at a ghost. The atmospheric readings we took showed temperatures that would kill most species within minutes. The atmospheric pressure, the oxygen levels, the radiation from your star, this world should be uninhabitable. This is our home, Hanwoo said. Simply. We're used to it. Where are you from? Nari's expression grew sad. A world called Korvan, in what you might call the Centauri system, was called Korvan. It no longer exists. What happened to it? The Draxan Empire, Taemin said bitterly. They came with massive ships and weapons that could crack planets. We had 3 days to evacuate before they destroyed everything. Hanwoo sat down across from them, processing this information. So, you're refugees. We are among the last of our people, Nari confirmed. Our escape pod malfunctioned during the journey. We crashed on your world expecting to die quickly in the hostile environment. Instead, a native creature found us and healed our wounds, Taemin added, looking at Hanwoo with newfound respect. You walk freely in conditions that would require us to wear full environmental protection suits. Hanwoo brought them some water and simple food. How many of your people escaped? Perhaps 10,000, scattered across different worlds that would accept refugees, Nari said sadly. Most species fear taking in Korvani because the Draxan Empire hunts us wherever we go. Why do they hunt you? The twins looked at each other, nervously. There are things about our people that the Empire wants to possess, Taemin said carefully. Knowledge and abilities they believe they can use for conquest. Hanwoo noticed they weren't telling him everything, but he didn't push. These beings had been through enough trauma already. Well, you're safe here for now, he said. The storm should clear up in a day or two. Both aliens stared at him in amazement. The idea that a human could casually survive conditions they considered deadly was clearly blowing their minds. Over the next 2 days, as the storm gradually cleared, Hanwoo learned more about his alien guests. They were fascinated by everything in his simple cabin, the way he cooked food over an open flame, how he chopped firewood with just an axe, and especially how he walked outside in the freezing cold, wearing only a jacket. You must understand, Nari explained while watching Hanwoo prepare dinner. In our galactic databases, worlds like this are classified as Class 5 death worlds. The gravitational pull alone should crush most species. Hanwoo paused while stirring soup. Death world, that seems a bit dramatic. Taemin laughed, a sound like silver bells. Dramatic? Your atmospheric pressure is 3 times what most civilized. A species can survive. The oxygen concentration would be toxic to half the galaxy. And the temperature variations... He shuddered. We recorded -20 degrees last night. Most beings would die instantly. Plus the radiation from your sun, Nari added. We've been wearing protective skin patches since we arrived, but you just walk around absorbing levels that would give other species cancer within hours. Hanwoo sat down with his soup, genuinely curious. So, how do other species live? What are their worlds like? Controlled environments, Taemin explained. Perfect temperatures, filtered air, gentle gravity. The Korvani homeworld was paradise. Crystal cities floating above calm seas, with artificial weather systems that never brought discomfort. Sounds boring, Hanwoo said honestly. Both aliens stared at him. Boring? Nari repeated. Yeah. No challenges, no seasons, no storms to test yourself against. How do you grow stronger? This seemed to puzzle them greatly. Taemin tilted his head. Why would anyone want to be stronger than necessary for survival? As the conversation continued, Hanwoo began to understand why they were really running. The Draxan Empire didn't just destroy worlds for resources. They collected species, studying their abilities and enslaving those with useful traits. The Korvani have natural telepathic abilities, Nari admitted reluctantly. We can share thoughts and emotions across great distances. The Draxan Empire wanted to use this for their military communications. When we refused to serve them willingly, Tamin continued, they decided to take our people by force. Those who wouldn't cooperate were sent to work camps. Those who did cooperate became living communication tools for their war machine. Hanwu felt anger rising in his chest. So they enslaved your entire species? Most of them, Nari said sadly. We were part of the royal family, so we had access to escape routes when the invasion began. But we estimate that over 90% of our people are now under Draxan control. And they're still hunting the ones who escaped? Especially us, Tamin said grimly. Royal blood carries stronger telepathic abilities. We're valuable prizes to them. Hanwu watched as Nari demonstrated her telepathy by sharing a memory directly with her brother. They both smiled at the same time, clearly experiencing something together that he couldn't perceive. That's actually pretty amazing, Hanwu said. I can see why they'd want that ability, which is why we chose to crash on a death world, Nari explained. We knew the Draxan would never think to look for us somewhere so dangerous. In their minds, we'd be dead within hours of landing here. Instead, you found us and kept us alive in conditions that would kill our captors instantly, Tamin marveled. You're like a living weapon against impossible odds, Hanwu laughed. I'm just a guy who knows how to live in the mountains. But as he watched the twins' amazement at his daily routine, splitting wood, hiking in snow, drinking water straight from a mountain stream, Hanwu began to realize that what seemed normal to him might actually be extraordinary to the rest of the galaxy. The question was, what would happen when the Draxan Empire inevitably found them? On the fourth morning, Hanwu woke up to an unusual silence. The mountain was too quiet. No bird songs, no small animals rustling in the underbrush. His military instincts immediately kicked in. Something was wrong. He moved quietly to the window and peered through the curtains. 3 figures in dark, form-fitting armor were moving through the trees about 100 meters from the cabin. They carried strange weapons that glowed with blue energy and moved with the coordination of trained soldiers. Nari, Tamin, Hanwu whispered urgently. Wake up. We have company. The twins sat up instantly, their golden eyes wide with fear. Nari looked toward the window and her face went pale. Draxan hunters, she breathed. They found us. How many? Tamin asked, already reaching for his translation device. 3 that I can see, Hanwu replied, his mind racing through tactical options. Maybe more hiding in the forest. The lead Draxan soldier was tall and muscular, with grey skin and red eyes that seemed to glow. He gestured to his companions, and they began to spread out around the cabin in a classic encirclement pattern. Their weapons can disintegrate matter, Nari warned, and their armor is nearly indestructible. Fighting them directly is suicide. Hanwu smiled grimly. Good thing. I wasn't planning to fight them directly. He quickly gathered supplies. His hunting rifle, extra ammunition, rope, his military survival knife, and some emergency flares. There's a back exit through the root cellar. When I give the signal, you both run toward the old mining trail behind. The ridge. What about you? Tamin asked. I'm going to even the odds a bit, Hanwu replied, checking his rifle. These hunters might have fancy technology, but they've never fought on Earth before. The first Draxan soldier kicked down the front door, energy weapon ready. He found an empty cabin with the fireplace still warm. His companions entered behind him, speaking in harsh, guttural sounds. What they didn't realize was that Hanwu had spent 5 years learning every inch of these mountains. He knew which rocks were loose, where the ground was unstable, and how to use the terrain as a weapon. The first hunter went down when Hanwu triggered a small avalanche by shooting at the rocks above him. The alien's advanced armor couldn't protect him from half a ton of granite. His energy weapon flew from his hands and shattered against a tree. The second hunter tried to pursue Hanwu up the mountainside, but he was used to fighting on flat, civilized terrain. The loose shale and steep inclines that Hanwu navigated easily became death traps for the heavy alien. When the hunter slipped and fell, Hanwu was waiting with his rifle. One clean shot to the helmet's visor ended that threat. The third hunter was smarter. He stayed in cover and tried to use his weapon's long range to pin Hanwu down. But Hanwu had learned patience in the military. He waited until the alien moved position, then used the mountain's echo effect to confuse him about where the shots were coming from. When the hunter finally exposed himself to get a better angle, Han Wu was already behind him. Years of mountain hiking had made him as quiet as a ghost on rocky terrain. The last Draxan soldier never saw the attack coming. Han Wu's military knife found the weak point where the helmet connected to the armor. 20 minutes after the attack began, all three hunters were dead. Han Wu collected their weapons and called for the twins. When they emerged from hiding, they stared at the battlefield in complete shock. "Impossible," Nari whispered. 3 trained Draxan soldiers, defeated by one human with primitive weapons. Not primitive, Han Wu corrected, shouldering his rifle, just different. They came to fight aliens, instead they met a human on his home ground. After the battle, Han Wu led the twins deeper into the mountains to a hidden cave he'd discovered years ago. As they sat around a small fire, both Nari and Taimin seemed different, more serious, almost regal in their bearing. "There's something we haven't told you," Nari began, her golden eyes reflecting the firelight. "Something we couldn't risk revealing until we knew we could trust you completely." Han Wu looked up from cleaning the captured Draxan weapons. "I'm listening." Taimin took a deep breath. "We're not just random refugees, Han Wu. We are the last direct descendants of the Corvani royal house. Our bloodline goes back 3,000 years. "Okay," Han Wu said simply. "Does that change anything?" The twins exchanged surprised glances. Most species would have immediately bowed or treated them differently. Han Wu just continued working on the alien weapons like they'd told him the weather forecast. "It changes everything," Nari insisted. "Our royal blood carries more than just stronger telepathic abilities. We have genetic codes embedded in our DNA, codes that unlock ancient Corvani weapon vaults scattered across the galaxy." This got Han Wu's attention. He set down the weapon he was examining. "What kind of weapons?" "Technology from the old Corvani Empire," Taimin explained. "Before we became a peaceful species, our ancestors were warriors who built weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. When we chose the path of peace, these weapons were sealed away." "But why keep them at all?" Han Wu asked. "Our ancestors were wise," Nari said. "They knew that someday peace might not be enough to protect our people. They left these vaults as a last resort, accessible only to royal blood in times of absolute necessity." Han Wu began to understand the bigger picture. "So the Draxan Empire isn't just enslaving your people for telepathy. They want access to these weapons." "Exactly," Taimin confirmed. "If they could force us to open even one vault, they'd have enough firepower to conquer half the galaxy. That's why they're hunting us so desperately." "How many vaults are there?" Han Wu asked. 17 that we know of," Nari replied. "Each one contains enough weapons to arm a fleet. But there's a problem. We can't access them alone." "What do you mean?" "The vaults require 2 royal bloodlines to open," Taimin explained. "That's why they need both of us alive. One twin can't do it alone." Han Wu stared into the fire, processing this information. "So you're telling me that you 2 kids are literally the key to liberating your entire species?" "We're not kids," Nari protested. "We're over 200 years old by your standards." "You look like kids to me," Han Wu said with a slight smile. "But I get it. You're the most important people in your civilization." "The most important people in a civilization that's almost extinct," Taimin said bitterly. "What good are royal codes when there's no kingdom left to save?" Han Wu looked at both of them seriously. "There's always something left to save. As long as even one of your people is still alive and fighting, there's hope." "How can you be so certain?" Nari asked. "Because I've seen what happens when people refuse to give up," Han Wu replied. "In the military, I learned that the fight isn't over until you decide it's over." Taimin leaned forward eagerly. "Then you'll help us? You'll help us find the weapon vaults?" "Hold on," Han Wu said, raising his hand. "First, we need to figure out exactly what we're up against. These Draxan hunters found you once. They'll find you again. And next time, they might bring more than 3 soldiers." "The nearest vault is in the Andromeda system," Nari said. "It would take months to reach, even with the fastest ships." "Then we better start planning," Han Wu said, standing up and looking out at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "Because something tells me this mountain hideaway isn't going to stay secret much longer." As if summoned by his words, a distant rumble echoed across the mountains, the sound of approaching spacecraft. The rumbling grew louder as more Draxan ships approached the mountain range. Hanwoo quickly gathered his gear while the twins packed their few belongings. They needed to move fast, but as they prepared to leave the cave, Nari suddenly grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said, her golden eyes intense with emotion. "Before we run again, there's something we must discuss." "Can it wait?" Hanwoo asked, listening to the ships getting closer. "We need to get out of here." "No, it cannot wait," Taemin said firmly. "What you did today, defeating 3 Draxan hunters with primitive weapons, it's impossible by galactic standards." Hanwoo shrugged. "I had the home field advantage." "You don't understand," Nari insisted. "Draxan soldiers are trained from birth to be perfect killing machines. They've conquered hundreds of worlds. Their technology is centuries ahead of anything on Earth. Yet you eliminated them like they were children playing war games. So what's your point?" The twins looked at each other, having one of their silent telepathic conversations. Then Nari spoke with ceremonial formality that seemed strange coming from someone who looked so young. "Hanwoo of Earth, we, the last royals of House Kovani, wish to make you an offer that has never been extended to any non-Kovani in our species' history." Taemin joined in, his voice equally formal. "We offer you adoption into the royal house of Kovani with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities of noble blood." Hanwoo stared at them. "I'm sorry, what?" "We want to make you our brother," Nari explained more simply. "Not just in friendship, but legally and genetically. Our medical technology can alter your DNA to include Kovani royal markers." "Why would you do that?" "Because you've proven yourself worthy," Taemin said. "You saved our lives, protected us from enemies, and showed combat skills that exceed our greatest warriors. By Kovani law, such actions earn the right to join the royal family." Hanwoo sat down heavily on a rock. "And what would that mean exactly?" "Access to all royal technology," Nari listed. "Enhanced physical abilities, extended lifespan, telepathic communication with us, and authority to command any Kovani military forces we encounter. Plus," Taemin added excitedly, "you'd be able to help us open the weapon vaults. The genetic locks recognize royal DNA, and once modified, yours would qualify." "You're talking about changing who I am on a genetic level," Hanwoo said slowly. "Making me part alien." "Making you part of our family," Nari corrected. "The strongest, most capable family member we've ever had." Hanwoo looked out at the stars where the Draxan ships were searching with bright beams of light. "Has any human ever been offered something like this before?" "No human has ever encountered our species before," Taemin replied. "Earth isn't even in our galactic databases as inhabited. Most species assume death worlds like this can't support intelligent life. So I'd be the first human to join an alien royal family. The first human to be recognized by galactic civilization at all," Nari said. "Most species don't even know your people exist." The sound of energy weapons firing echoed across the mountains as the Draxan ships began destroying potential hiding spots. Hanwoo stood up and shouldered his rifle. "I need time to think about this," he said. "Right now, we need to focus on staying alive." "Of course," Nari agreed. "But Hanwoo, please consider it seriously. With royal status, you wouldn't just be helping us. You'd be representing all of humanity to the galaxy. And," Taemin added with a grin, "you'd have access to weapons and technology that would make these Draxan hunters look like they're fighting with sticks and stones." As they slipped deeper into the mountain tunnels, Hanwoo couldn't help but wonder what his quiet retirement had suddenly turned into. 3 days ago, his biggest decision was what to cook for dinner. Now he was being offered alien nobility and the chance to fight a galactic empire. The strangest part was that he was actually considering it. 3 hours later, they reached an abandoned mining shaft deep in the mountains. The Draxan searchlights couldn't penetrate this far underground, giving them a chance to rest and talk properly. Hanwoo sat against the stone wall, watching the twins tend to their equipment with technology that seemed like magic to him. "I've made my decision about your offer," Hanwoo announced. Both aliens looked up eagerly. "And?" Nari asked. "I accept the adoption into your royal family," Hanwoo said. "But I have conditions. Taimin blinked in surprise. Conditions? You're negotiating with royalty? I'm negotiating with friends who need help, Hanwu corrected. And if we're going to be family, we should be honest with each other. Nari tilted her head curiously. What kind of conditions? Hanwu stood up and began pacing the small cave. You want me to help you access those weapon vaults and fight the Draxan Empire? Fine, but I don't want to just be another royal with fancy technology. I want to actually make a difference. What do you mean? Taimin asked. I want to train your rebel forces, Hanwu said simply. Teach them human military tactics, survival skills, and combat strategies. In exchange, you give me access to Corvani technology that I can adapt for human use. The twins stared at him in stunned silence. Finally, Nari spoke. You want to teach us how to fight? Your people have been losing this war because you think like civilized beings, Hanwu explained. The Draxan Empire conquers worlds by being more brutal and better armed. But they've never faced an enemy that fights dirty, uses terrain advantages, and refuses to play by their rules. That's barbaric, Taimin said, though he didn't sound entirely disapproving. That's survival, Hanwu replied. Today, I killed 3 of their best soldiers with a hunting rifle and some rocks. Imagine what 1,000 Corvani rebels could do if they knew how to fight like humans. Nari was quiet for a long moment, clearly thinking. Our military traditions emphasize honor, direct confrontation, and minimal casualties. How's that working? Out for you? Hanwu asked bluntly. We've lost 90% of our people, Taimin admitted. Exactly. Sometimes honor gets you killed, and dead people can't protect anyone. Hanwu sat back down. Look, I'm not saying abandon your values. I'm saying add some human pragmatism to your noble ideals. The twins had another of their silent, telepathic conversations, their golden eyes focused on each other intensely. Hanwu waited patiently, understanding they were probably discussing things he couldn't even imagine. This is unprecedented, Nari finally said. A newly adopted royal making demands about military strategy. But, Taimin added with growing excitement, it's also brilliant. The Draxan would never expect Corvani forces to suddenly start fighting like savages, Hanwu suggested with a grin. Like humans, Nari corrected, and there was new respect in her voice. They've studied our traditional tactics for decades. They know exactly how we'll respond in any situation. But they know nothing about human warfare, Taimin continued. Guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, using the environment as a weapon. These concepts don't exist in their military databases. Hanwu nodded. Plus, once I have access to your technology, I can figure out ways to combine human tactics with alien equipment, create fighting methods that neither species has ever seen before. You're talking about revolutionizing galactic warfare, Nari said, awe creeping into her voice. I'm talking about winning, Hanwu replied. Your rebels are scattered, demoralized, and fighting a losing battle with outdated strategies. Give me 6 months to train them, and I'll give you an army that the Draxan Empire won't know how to fight. The cave fell silent except for the distant sound of search ships still hunting in the darkness above. Finally, Taimin started laughing, a sound like silver wind chimes in a storm. What's so funny? Hanwu asked. We came to Earth to hide from our enemies, Taimin said. Instead, we found the most dangerous ally in the galaxy. The next morning brought bad news. Through a crack in the cave entrance, they could see at least 12 Draxan ships circling the mountain range. Ground forces were moving in coordinated search patterns, using advanced scanners to check every possible hiding spot. They brought an entire hunting battalion, Nari whispered, her face pale with fear. We can't fight that many soldiers. Hanwu studied the enemy movements through his binoculars. How many soldiers per ship? Usually 5 to 8, Taimin replied. So we're looking at maybe 100 trained killers, all with superior weapons and armor. Good, Hanwu said. Surprising both twins. Good? Nari stared at him. How is this good? Because now we get to test our new partnership properly. Hanwu turned to them with a determined smile. You said you wanted to combine human tactics with Corvani technology. Time to see if it works. He pulled out the Draxan weapons they'd captured earlier. Can you modify these to work for me? Taimin examined the alien rifle. I can adjust the grip size and recalibrate the energy output for your physiology. But Han Wu, even with their weapons, we're still outnumbered 50 to pai. 1. Numbers don't matter if you use them right, Han Wu replied. In the military, we had a saying, make the enemy fight your battle, not theirs. Over the next 2 hours, Han Wu outlined his plan while the twins worked to adapt the captured technology. They would use the mountain's natural caves and tunnels to create what he called killing corridors, narrow passages where superior numbers became a disadvantage. The Draxan fight like most advanced civilizations, Han Wu explained. They rely on overwhelming firepower and direct assault. They'll expect us to either surrender or make a desperate last stand. What will we actually do? Nari asked, now. Fully invested in learning human tactics. We'll make them chase us through terrain that favors defense over offense. Then we'll hit them in small groups, using their own weapons against them. The first part of the plan worked perfectly. Han Wu deliberately left obvious tracks, leading to a narrow canyon with high walls on both sides. When the Draxan ground forces followed, they found themselves packed together in a space barely wide enough for 3 soldiers to walk side by side. That's when Nari and Taimin demonstrated why royal Corvani bloodlines were so valuable. Their enhanced telepathy allowed them to coordinate attacks with perfect timing, while Han Wu's tactical knowledge told them exactly when and where to strike. The first wave of Draxan soldiers never knew what hit them. Energy blasts rained down from concealed positions above the canyon walls. When the survivors tried to retreat, they found their exit blocked by carefully placed rock slides that Han Wu had prepared. "This is impossible," one of the Draxan commanders growled in his harsh language, not knowing that Taimin's translation device was picking up every word. "The targets are 3 refugees with primitive weapons." "Not primitive," Han Wu whispered to his alien partners, "just different." The second wave tried a more cautious approach, sending scouts ahead and using their ships for air support. But Han Wu had anticipated this. Using modified Draxan energy weapons, they took out 2 of the smaller scout ships, sending them crashing into the forest below. The psychological effect was devastating. Draxan soldiers were trained to fight enemies who used predictable, honorable tactics. They had no experience dealing with opponents who set traps, used terrain advantages, and struck from unexpected angles. "They're panicking," Nari observed, monitoring the enemy communications through her telepathy. "Their commanders are arguing about whether to retreat or call for reinforcements." "Perfect," Han Wu said. "Panicked enemies make mistakes." The final phase of the battle lasted only 20 minutes. Using a combination of human guerrilla tactics and Corvani technology, they systematically destroyed half the remaining force. The survivors, including their commanding officer, finally broke and fled to their ships. As the Draxan fleet retreated into space, Han Wu and the twins watched from the mountain peak. Both aliens looked at their human partner with something approaching reverence. "In one day you turned us from helpless refugees into a force that terrified the galaxy's most feared military," Taimin said in amazement. "We turned us into that," Han Wu corrected. "This only worked because we combined your abilities with human strategy," Nari smiled, her golden eyes bright with new hope. "The rebellion is going to be very interested in meeting you." 6 months. Later, Han Wu stood on the bridge of a captured Draxan battleship, watching as the last enemy vessels fled from the Kepler 442 system. What had started as a desperate escape from his mountain cabin had become the largest rebellion victory in galactic history. "That's the 7th world we've liberated this month," Taimin reported, his voice filled with pride as he coordinated with Corvani rebel forces across the star system. "The Draxan Empire is retreating from 3 entire sectors." Han Wu nodded, but his attention was focused on the tactical display, showing friendly forces throughout the galaxy. Green dots represented human-trained Corvani units, and there were now thousands of them. His human combat academy had grown from a single cave hideout to mobile training centers on dozens of worlds. "The most amazing part," Nari said, joining them at the command center, "is how quickly other species started asking for help once word spread." It was true. News of a Death World species that could defeat Draxan forces had traveled faster than their ships. Representatives from enslaved civilizations across the galaxy were sending desperate messages, begging for human military advisors. The Zentari delegation wants to know if you can teach their people mountain warfare, Tamin continued, reading through diplomatic communications. And the vegan colonies are offering to trade their entire medical database for just one human, tactical instructor. Hanwu smiled, remembering his quiet life in the mountains that now seemed like a different lifetime. What's our current force strength? 12,000 Corvani rebels trained in human tactics, Nari replied, plus alliance forces from 18 different species, all using combined human-alien strategies. And Earth's response to all this? The twins exchanged glances. This was still a sensitive topic. Your government is adapting to the situation, Tamin said diplomatically. The truth was that Earth's leaders were struggling to understand how one of their retired soldiers had accidentally become the most important military figure in the galaxy. The UN had eventually appointed Hanwu as Earth's first official galactic ambassador, mainly because they had no idea what else to do with him. "Sir," came a voice from the communications station, a young Corvani officer who'd been one of Hanwu's first students. "We're receiving surrender offers from 3 more Draxon-controlled systems." "Terms?" Hanwu asked. "Complete withdrawal of occupation forces and release of all enslaved populations. They're also offering to provide intelligence on remaining Draxon strongholds." It was working better than Hanwu had ever imagined. The combination of human tactical thinking and alien technology had created something the galaxy had never seen before. An unstoppable liberation force that fought by rules the Draxon Empire couldn't understand or counter. "What's our next target?" Nari asked. Before Hanwu could answer, another communication came through. This one made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. It was a priority message from the Galactic Council, the governing body of civilized space that had never before acknowledged Earth's existence. "Human Commander Hanwu," the formal message began, "the Galactic Council hereby recognizes Earth as a sovereign world and requests immediate diplomatic relations. We also formally request military assistance in liberating the remaining occupied territories of the former Draxon Empire." Hanwu read the message twice, then started laughing. "6 months ago, I was a guy living alone in the mountains. Now I'm apparently Earth's representative to galactic civilization, and the most feared military commander in known space," Tamin added with a grin. "Draxon soldiers are surrendering just at the mention of human tactics. The best part," Nari said, pulling up strategic reports, "is that we've barely started showing them what humans can do. Wait until the galaxy meets Earth's actual military forces." Hanwu looked out at the stars, where dozens of liberated worlds were sending grateful messages to their unlikely savior. Earth had gone from unknown to legendary in less than a year, all because 2 alien refugees had crashed near his cabin during a snowstorm. "You know what the strangest part is?" Hanwu said to his alien partners and adopted family. "I think I'm actually going to miss the quiet mountain life." Both twins burst into laughter, a sound like silver bells that had become his favorite noise in the universe. "Somehow," Nari said, "I doubt you'll be getting much quiet time in the foreseeable future."